The Obama administration is on the defense after Guardian reporter Glenn Greenwald published a bombshell story that the National Security Agency had a court order to collect phone records of millions of Verizon customers over a 3-month period. This shouldn't come as a surprise to RT viewers because we've been covering the growth of government surveillance of citizens. Here's a refresher.
It seems that secrecy is actually strengthening the national security state in order to hide from accountability and oversight.
It's more than just invasion of privacy. It's about destroying the concept of privacy online.
The NSA has operated continually under the shroud of non-transparency and secrecy, despite a commitment on President Obama's first day in office that this is going to be the most transparent administration ever. The NSA just doesn't think that applies to them.
Well, in the quest to hunt down terrorists, the Obama administration has announced plans to give spy agencies full access to people's finances.
It's going to allow further erosion of our privacy rights that's been going on since 9/11.
The mechanisms are already in place for that type of control and monitoring. And some say you're over-dramatizing. All you have to do is look at what's happening. I see it getting far worse. It's a total hypocrisy as far as I'm concerned.
And this court order was only the beginning. It's become clear that the NSA has been renewing these collection requests every 3 months for the past 7 years, and that AT&T and Sprint are also involved. These revelations lead to a scathing New York Times editorial which said the administration has lost all credibility, which was later edited to say the administration has now lost credibility on this issue. And that was before another story broke that the NSA and the Federal Bureau of Investigation are running a program called PRISM. Well, what is it? The Washington Post found out that the government has been secretly collecting all kinds of data from 9 Silicon Valley giants, including Google, Apple, Facebook, Skype, Microsoft, since 2007. PRISM collects audio, video, photos, email, cloud documents, and chat logs. PRISM can even see what you're searching for in typing in real time. So much of this defense of the NSA isn't looking at any content, merely collecting metadata. This morning, Obama defended his policies. Take a listen.
I came in with a healthy skepticism about these programs. My team evaluated them. We scrubbed them thoroughly. We actually expanded some of the oversight, increased some of the safeguards. But my assessment and my team's assessment was that they help us prevent terrorist attacks.
So is this all excusable in preventing the name of terrorism? Well, with me to discuss this, I'm joined now by Sahar Aziz, Associate Professor of Law at Texas Wesleyan University. Hi there, Professor. I understand that you work for the Department of Homeland Security. Can you give us some idea here of the data that's being collected, if you can?
Well, this incident shows that under Obama, it is a lot more of the same compared to what was under Bush. And so I think this is just more evidence to show that, unfortunately, Obama's national security policies are not very different from his predecessor, notwithstanding his campaign rhetoric, which was to preserve civil liberties and to reverse overreaching government surveillance. So I think that's an important point for the American public to accept and to hold the Obama administration accountable for. In terms of the vast surveillance that's going on, it's literally including local phone calls. It's including all of our telephone calls that are now being collected into this massive database, which they can then query at any time. Now, the government's position is, yes, we are engaging in prospective intelligence gathering, which is very unconventional. But we are not going to query the data unless we have some form of individualized suspicion based on specific facts. The problem is, how do we know that, in fact, they are not going to abuse their possession of that data? Second, as a matter of law, why do they even have the authority to possess such data? And third, how do we hold them accountable if they violate that trust. And actually, fourth, I would add, is they really have abandoned that trust. There is no trust anymore between the Obama administration and the public in terms of national security practices.
Okay. Well, the Director of Intelligence, James R. Clapper, had this to say about the agency's programs. He says that they're designed to facilitate the acquisition of foreign intelligence information concerning non-U.S. persons located outside the United States. It cannot be used to intentionally target any U.S. citizen or any other U.S. person or anyone located within the United States. What do you say to that, Professor? Is he telling the truth?
I think it's hard to find that a convincing position when they are collecting information on local transactions. It's one thing to say the only transactions that we're collecting are those that are international, or one could argue international to domestic, and even that's a bit tenuous because it could be a U.S. citizen abroad talking to a U.S. citizen here. But here you're talking about domestic local phone calls, domestic emails. They don't know whether those two parties are U.S. citizens or not, and I don't really think they care. I think what they want is to surveil everyone, have access to all the data, and be able to use it at their discretion without having their discretion monitored or held accountable in accordance with the law.
Okay. Well, we've seen in recent weeks journalists who've been, procuring government information leaks. They can be considered co-conspirators and charged under this Espionage Act. Should the Department of Justice take action? Are we going to be able to see them taking any action against The Guardian, with this report? Could that happen?
That's a very good question. I think that the Obama administration has made it very clear that they are willing to go after journalists, and they're willing to compromise the public's ability to remain informed so that they can hold their government accountable by going after journalists, which of course is meant to chill journalists' freedom and freedom of the press. So at this point, one doesn't know anymore what Obama is capable of because his rhetoric just simply does not reflect his actions on national security. So it doesn't really matter what they say. What matters is what are they doing.
Okay, that's an excellent point. All right, so I understand that one of your grievances at DHS was that there was a lot of racial profiling going on, particularly with Muslim Americans. Do you think that Muslims are being surveilled to a greater degree under, things like this, or is it just everybody, regardless of race or religion, everybody susceptible to the government eye here?
I think right now everybody's susceptible, but it started out, and this is how they convinced the public that it was worth giving up their civil rights, which was very short-sighted, is that they used a fear-based narrative, and they includes the Bush administration and the Obama administration, to target a vulnerable minority group, and in post-9/11 that tends to be Muslims, and saying, look, we need to compromise their civil liberties to protect our safety, as if there's a difference between ours and us and them. And now we have seen the fruits of that, which is they've changed the law, they've changed practices such that these very expansive surveillance practices are everybody, you, me, anyone who's watching, particularly those that are in the United States, their information, their emails, their phone calls are in the NSA, the National Security Agency's databases, and we have no idea what they're doing with that.
Mm-hmm. It's alarming. There's no question about that. All right, so in respect to the NSA's intelligence data mining companies, the DOJ's surveillance of the press, the wiretapping, everything that's come out in the past few weeks, do you think that we've seen the worst of it yet, or is there much more to come to this? I mean, these little leaks here and there, what do you make of it?
That's a very good question. I think there could very possibly be worse in terms of, to the extent that the law can be interpreted as broadly as possible, I think that the government is pushing the extent of interpretation as broadly as possible in favor of their authority. So just as PRISM has been around since 2007, and we didn't know about it, and now we do, there are a lot of other programs that may be in existence that we don't know about. So I think this shows that we have got to continue to hold the executive branch accountable. The media is even more important now than it ever has been, which may explain why they're going after the media. I think it shows an ulterior motive. And I think that Congress needs to be more active in holding the executive accountable. And to some extent, we need to find out if Congress is also involved in giving them a green light behind the scenes and then in public claiming ignorance. So to a large extent, the American public needs to also discuss this with their representatives in Congress and say, did you know about this? And did you allow this? And if you did, why should I re-elect you? Because you told me you care about my civil liberties, but you seem to be on board with it when it's politically convenient. But then when we find out what really happened, you suddenly back off.
Professor, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much. That was Sahar Aziz, Associate Professor of Law at Texas Wesleyan University.